Okay, welcome. This is the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting for 9 a.m. Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is citizen input, and we do have a few requests to speak, and we did this last week, and I am going to hold on to the policy. This is not a public hearing on safe parking. This is agenda item number 11. There has been some discussion since the last meeting amongst many parties on that. So that is item number 11. We will get to it. And as I say, it's not a public hearing on the matter. So Mr. Shoemaker, request to speak, citizen input.
Good morning. I'm Carl Shoemaker. I live at 312 Northeast Fifth Street in Bend. There was a lumber town once, east of a mountain range. And in it were two competing lumber mills across from an artificial pond from each other on a concrete dam. And those two lumber mills would float the logs they had cut down that river to end up in that pond. And on payday, the men from either competing mill would line up along either bank of that pond and bet on a champion to win. And those two champions would walk across that concrete dam to the middle and jump on two separate logs and start rolling them under their feet. And of course, one of them would fall in first and the other one would win the prize. This happened in a lumber town not so long ago, not so far away from where I am sitting right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for item not on the agenda? And anyone online? Okay. So at this time, consent agenda. So we're gonna convene back and forth a little bit here. So this is consent agenda items, item 1 through 6, and then also for Deschutes County proper, 8, 9, and 10.
Do them in one motion.
Okay, so we're just acknowledging that. Okay. So so we're convening as the governing body for Sun River Service District as one of these items, but it'll all be under the consent agenda. Thank you very much.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. Thank you. At this time, item number 11. So this is consideration of ground lease for Mountain View Community Development for a 1/4 acre county-owned property for safe parking at the Public Safety Campus.
Morning, Commissioners. Christy Bollinger, Deschutes County Property Management. So we're here this morning to ask the boards for their consideration to execute a lease between Mountain View Community Development and the county for approximately 0.25 acres at the Public Safety Campus for use for safe parking. We also have Rick Russell on the line in case you have any questions. Morning, Rick.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you, Christy. We talked about this extensively last week, but just a very quick reminder. We are seeking a lease for 12 months of a corner of the Public Safety Campus. This is for safe parking, the use of micro shelters in this case. So that's a safe, legal, sanitary place for people who are unhoused. We provide a case manager for them to work toward a housing stability goal. We're, I believe, at the end of a very long process, a very extensive neighbor notification process, where we met either in person or extended communications through mail to both businesses and two residential neighborhoods in the area. We have finalized agreements with the adjacent property owners on a fencing plan that everyone is happy with, where we will be absorbing most of the costs for that. And we are up against a bit of a deadline here, June 30th. There's some state funding that will be paying for some of the for the units and some of the work to get them, connected to electrical. And so we've got some contracts and kind of lined up and ready to go, assuming there's approval today. Have continued to extend invitations to neighbors if they are interested in a sit-down meeting, if they're interested in hearing more about what we do to keep our site safe, both for participants and for neighborhoods. Have not had anyone take me up on that in the last couple of weeks, but glad to do so. That 12-month lease does come with a 90-day check-in. That was part of our discussion last week. And so 90 days after we've placed our first participant there, we expect to come back to the commission and give a report on what we expect will be a very safely and quietly operating safe parking site. So thank you for your consideration of this morning.
So this is a decision by the Board of Commissioners. As I say, there has been a split, support for this. We're not, this is a public meeting, but we haven't done any kind of a public outreach or public hearing on the matter. So as I say, we've had multiple folks wanting to talk on this subject. Yeah, and I haven't been supportive, so.
Well, we haven't done a public hearing, but there has been public outreach in the community, in the immediately adjacent neighborhood, the nearby businesses, the public safety campus agencies. So there has been some public outreach.
And because we are now hearing from the community, of course we are, as I mentioned to Christy this morning, I wish that she and I would have gone door to door and talked to the community like I did in Redmond, because that way I would know that it was done. I think we visited like 30 sites that day, didn't we? And I recognize that this is, we have such an amazing problem here in Deschutes County. We had over 80 fires started last year, and from the transients in Bent, 80 fires alone, and you see how many fires we've already had here in the county. It could be a really horrific year, and the reason why I've believed in safe parking from Rick's program is that they do an excellent job. They do background checks. They, as I told Rick, we have to get the people that really need a hand up and that want a hand up in this location in order to be incredibly good neighbors on the backside of the rest of our safety campus. So I know there's background checks sometimes can be an issue, but hopefully, well, hope isn't really what I want to say. Hopefully they will do the right thing as far as the background check goes, and Rick will find those people that deserve an opportunity to get their life back in order. But we now apparently have in the neighborhood of 180 people in the temporary safe parking area north of town. 180 people are there. We have an enormous problem. And for the most part, most of the homeless operations in Bend have all been in the Larkspur neighborhood. And to me, that seems unfair. So I know this isn't good. I appreciate talking with people. I've seen Rick's track record. Last year his numbers were 34% successful. It's not 100% successful, but his social program is really they are there and they are ultimately making that difference. And why it's taken longer for more churches in Bend to step up, I find it frustrating. I tried to work with some of the churches last year in order to get more churches engaged, and really, that's not happened. So, and yet, the reputation out in the world is that, come to Bend and you will get taken care of. So, because I'm hearing, oh, a lot of these people aren't from here. Well, I believe it. I know they come over in the summer because our weather's normally really nice in the summer. So I just feel like we have an incredibly frightening situation now. It is an emergency because of all the fires. And we as county commissioners need to do something. This is, it's a year lease, but it has a 90-day, every 90 days, it needs to check in once it does get into operations. And it does have to go through the city of Bend after we give our approval. So that's another area where you can, let your comments be known.
So safe parking on private property or associated with a church, is wonderful. Let's do these outreach services. Let's make sure people are supported. This is starting the government program of social service provided by a group that's going to need to be funded in the future with a system that doesn't have any reoccurring revenue coming back to it. As I say, that it just kind of falls off a cliff for me. And I want to do big, bold things. I'm ready to do big, bold things in the world of homeless. But as I say, this little corner lot in that area at the end of a roundabout haven't been supportive. So I'll leave it there at this time.
Doing big, bold things, honestly, I feel like you have to do small things. And you have to help the people that actually want to be helped. And that's who Rick goes to. He goes to the people that really do want to be helped. And
Which is the function of society, which is the function of faith-based community, which is
Well,
the function of.
tell me,
us
why
that
haven't more
80%
churches in Bend stepped up then?
Well, yeah, so then it's
Why
the will
haven't
of
they?
the citizens in the community. So now we're the government saying, okay, we're going to do this for your own good. That's where I have a hard time with this.
It's not our own good. It's helping people that do need a hand up. It's not taking people that honestly have substance use disorder and mental illness and need to go somewhere seriously where they can get real help. I mean, what are we now up to 21 murder cases in Deschutes County? I think there was another one this week. Society itself has serious issues that are complicating how we can help.
Yeah, the people of Deschutes County want us to do something about unauthorized, unmanaged, unregulated homeless encampments around the community. And this is one small way of putting a dent at that and reducing the number of people who are camped in those situations and putting them on a pathway out of homelessness. I believe that these lands are the people's resources, and if the people want solutions to homelessness, we should deliver those solutions.
Well, we stepped up in Redmond several years ago in October of 22. We stepped up. Christy and I went door to door, and we met with the community, and I gave everyone my cell phone number. I said, if there's ever a problem, you call me, and I will let law enforcement know. I had one gentleman that called me for a bit, and that program seems to work really well. It's out in Evergreen, and that neighborhood was incredibly concerned, but it has seemed to work. So it has been going on almost 3 years.
With that, and with the extensive discussion of this item that we had last week, I'll move approval of document number 2025-582, a ground lease with Mountain View Community Development for use of give or take 0.25 acres of county-owned property for safe parking at the public safety campus.
And could we add into the motion then, as soon as it is in operation? I want it in the motion so that we have it confirmed. We will have a 90-day review, not 91, but either by 90 or before 90, depending on what day of the week that falls on. Just so we have to stay on top of it, and I'm sure the community will let us know. And that's a second.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded with the amendment that was mentioned. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and Chair will vote no. Great.
Thank you, commissioners.
At this time, we're going to go through multiple jurisdictions and public hearings on the adopting annual budgets. As I say, we're going to be stepping through a whole bunch of them. So at this time, item number 12, convening as the governing body for OSU Extension and 4-H Service District.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cam Sparks, Budget Manager for the record. I just want to point out that on May 14th, the Budget Committee approved the budget for the county as well as all the service districts. And there haven't been any changes between what was approved and what we're adopting today. And so that applies for the items 12 through 18, I believe.
So this is a public hearing on the matter. And I'll be, as I say, we're going to be opening and closing public hearings on each one of these. So public hearing for consideration of resolution adopting Deschutes County Extension and 4-H Service District budget for fiscal year 26. Is there anyone here to comment on this matter? Is there anyone online? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And with the information provided, is there a motion?
So motion, I so move approval of
Nice
resolution
detailed.
number 2025-022, adopting the fiscal year 2026 Deschutes County 911 Service District budget in the sum of $28,825,100, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of 0.3618 per 1,000 of assessed value, and appropriate amounts set forth in the resolution.
You mentioned 28 million or?
28,825,000.
So that, yeah, first, back one. Yep.
That's the 4-H number is
Yeah.
1,076,000.
There you go.
Resolution.
Oh, I'm on 13, sorry.
Dash
Oh.
021.
Okay, well, forget that. Wait, save it for next time.
4-H
All right.
would have got a big budget.
I know, I was thinking 4-H. I know, how did I get there?
We can cue that one up for the next.
All right, so. I guess I don't have it. So, all right. I move to approve resolution number 2025-021, adopting the fiscal year 25-26 Deschutes County Extension and 4-H Service District budget in the sum of $1,076,000, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of 0.0224 per 1,000 of assessed value, and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. At this time, item number 13, convening as the governing body for 911 Service District. Yeah,
Yeah, I can introduce each
yeah,
one.
quick, yeah, quick, yeah.
So this is resolution 25-022. It's for Deschutes County 911 Service District to adopt the budget for fiscal year 26 in the amount of $28,825,100 and impose property taxes at the rate of 0.3618 per 1,000 of assessed value.
So this is a public hearing on the matter. Is there anyone to comment on the 911 Service District budget? Is there anyone online? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. And is there discussion or a motion?
I found number 12. It was just stapled to number 11.
Yep, you're right there. It was close.
Well, that's where it went. Okay, so I move approval of resolution number 2025-022, adopting the fiscal year 2026 Deschutes County 911 Service District budget in the sum of $28,825,100, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of 0.3618 per 1,000 of assessed value, and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. At this time, we'll convene as the governing body of the Black Butte Ranch Service District. Item number 14, public hearing and consideration of the resolution adopting the budget.
Okay, so for Black Butte, the resolution is 2025-023 for the Black Butte Ranch Service District to adopt the budget for fiscal year 26 in the amount of $3,363,860 and impose property taxes at the rate of 1.0499 per 1,000 of assessed value for operations and 0.78 per 1,000 of assessed value for local option tax.
So this is a public hearing on the matter. Is anyone here to comment on this? Is there anyone online? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And is there discussion or the motion? And you almost kind of did the complete motion. We could
did.
possibly just do so moved.
Are we done checking?
Yes.
To see if anyone's. Okay. I move to approve resolution 2025-023, adopting the fiscal year 2025 to 26 Black Butte Service District budget in the sum of $3,363,860, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $1.0499 per 1,000 of assessed value for operations and 78 cents per thousand of assessed value for local option tax and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. At this time, item number 15, convening as the governing body of the countywide law enforcement district, District Number 1.
So this is resolution 2025-024 for countywide law enforcement district. The total budget for fiscal year 26 is $55,439,000. And property taxes will be imposed at the rate of 1.25 per 1,000 of assessed value.
So this is a public hearing on the matter. Is anyone here to comment on this item? Anyone remote? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. And is there discussion or a motion?
I do have it as a discussion. Okay, taking this 55 million CAM and then the 22 million from the rural bill, so they're now at like 77 million? Okay,
Correct, in total.
in total, but I thought they, like a year ago, they were at like 68 million or something. So they went up actually that much?
Well, 2 years, I believe it was it last year or the year before? I'm trying to remember that we increased their levy to the maximum rate.
Right.
So that's part of it. And then we're,
Well, we did it a couple of years ago.
yeah, 2 years ago, I believe. And then we're estimating the assessed value to come in 4.6% higher than fiscal year 25.
4.6%.
Actually, I think it's 4.58% to be.
Well, that's a numbers person. Speaking to a numbers person.
Hey, I can relate to that. I mean, I was just surprised that it was up that much when we add it together. Okay.
Is there a
So,
motion?
I move approval of resolution number 2025-024, adopting the fiscal year 2026 countrywide law enforcement district budget in the sum of $55,439,000, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $0.125 per 1,000 of assessed value and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Second.
So just clarity, $1.25 even.
1.25.
Yep, 1.25. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yep.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes. At this time, we will convene as the governing body for the Rural Law Enforcement District, Number 2, for a public hearing considering the budget.
So this is resolution 2025-025 for rural law enforcement district with a total budget of $22,342,000 and property taxes to be imposed at the rate of 1.55 per 1,000 of assessed value.
So this is a public hearing on the matter. Is anyone here to comment on this? Anybody remotely? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. And any discussion or a motion? District number 2, rural.
Move to approve resolution 2025-025, adopting the fiscal year 2025 to 26 rural law enforcement district budget in the sum of $22 million, $22,342,000, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $1.55 per thousand of assessed value and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. At this time, we convene as the governing body for the Sun River Service District. This will be a public hearing considering the annual budget.
So this is resolution 2025-026 for Sun River Service District to adopt the total budget of
Million.
15,369,205 and impose property taxes at the rate of 3.45 per 1,000 of assessed value for operations and 0.47 per 1,000 of assessed value for local option tax.
So this is a public hearing on the matter. Is anyone here to comment? Is there anyone remote? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. So discussion or a motion.
I move approval of resolution number 2025-026, adopting the fiscal year 2026 Sun River Service District budget in a sum of $15,369,205, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $3.45 per 1,000 of assessed value for operations and 47 cents per 1,000 of assessed value for local option tax and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. At this time, item number 18, reconvening as the governing body for Deschutes County proper, public hearing considering the budget.
Okay, so this is the last budget adoption item. This is resolution 2025-020, which is for Deschutes County, to adopt total budget of $658,727,347 and impose property taxes at the rate of 1.2783 per 1,000 of assessed value.
This is a public hearing on the matter. Is anyone here to comment on Deschutes County budget? Anyone remote? So seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this matter.
I would like to make a comment about item number 6 on our agenda because I thought, Cam, you were sitting there. The changes to those adjustments at year end actually amounted to the current budget. It increased it by 2.5 million, which to me is maybe next year you could bring that up with it not in consent and we could actually go through it because it does increase. It didn't go down. It increased things. 2.5 million, 130, let's see, $2,513,359 with all those revised budget adjustments. So
Yes, there were several funds that needed budget adjustments to account for unforeseen expenditures and other changes. Essentially, some budget housekeeping just to ensure that the funds had enough appropriations to cover any expenses that are going to come in through the end of June. But absolutely, yes, next year I can put that on the
it wasn't
regular.
it was still 2.5 million. So
Mhm.
yeah, the net result.
Discussion. Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve resolution 2025-020, adopting the fiscal year 25-26 Deschutes County budget in the sum of $658,727,347, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes at the tax rate of $1.2783 per thousand of assessed value and appropriating amounts set forth in the resolution.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. So for discussion, yeah, that's the big number. And as I say, $1.27 isn't $658 million, but this is the roll up from all the other contracts, services, and there are other jurisdictions in here, but this is a big roll up number. So I'm just acknowledging that. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. We did it. So big numbers. Nick, I know, you're quietly sitting over there, but you're the budget officer, kind of the front end of this that presents the budget. Cam, you're the professional behind the scenes, and Robert, and thank you very much for joining us today. 6-month process almost. So we do this, isn't it?
It is. Thank you, commissioners. And we've thanked the team many times, and I just can't do so enough. Because we did begin this process shortly after the adoption of the current fiscal year budget. We really started last September creating this budget, given the challenges that we're experiencing and the challenges ahead. And just incredible thanks to the budget committee and to the entire team for the work to get to this point today, and to Cam for really leading us through most of the process. You've just done an exceptional job for us as our
Thank you.
budget financial planning manager. Thank you very much.
Well, and the budget path got narrow. It got narrow on us, got narrow on most jurisdictions, very narrow, real fast, inflationary environment, cost of doing business, serving the people. But yeah, Deschutes County kind of in a stable moment here at least. So this is a good to get all the numbers out there and understand where we're at. So thank you very much, everybody involved in the process. Mr. Pfister here is chairing our budget committee in the room too. So when the 6 of us get around the table, it's a really good discussion. Taking a look at the big picture. Anything else?
Cam, I believe it's Senate Bill 916, the one with the unemployment for people on strike. I believe it was limited to 10 weeks, but are you now working on what the implications are for Deschutes County?
I did some initial analysis when, before the bill was approved, to calculate, what the potential impact could be. It's a little bit difficult to calculate that impact because you just don't know all of the variables. But I don't have that number at the top of my head, but I do have it and I can provide that.
It was like over 400,000 or something, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I just wondered if we're like preparing for that because a lot of counties are 75% of our 36 counties are in really incredibly tight financial situations, and they really felt like this was going to be detrimental to their.
Yeah, it did have a pretty big financial impact if that were to happen. So I'll definitely follow up with that exact, well, it's not an exact number. It's an.
I know, it's an
estimate, but
approximation,
yes.
right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I just,
In light of that concern, it's a really great thing that we just completed contract negotiations on the largest county employee union contracts for Deschutes County, and every contract that we have completed is a firewall, a cushion against potential strikes.
So with that, item number 19, welcome back, Cam. So public hearing and consideration increasing transferring appropriations for ARPA funds.
Okay, this is my last item of the day. This is Resolution 2025-028, which is a budget adjustment resolution for fiscal year 25 for 2 funds that require a public hearing because the changes to the expenditures within each fund is greater than 10%, and Oregon local budget law requires a public hearing be held when that occurs. So the first adjustment is in the ARPA fund. This adjustment reduces program expenses by approximately $3.3 million. It also recognizes additional revenue of approximately $1 million. And this is in order to allow the fund to have enough transfer out appropriations to be able to transfer out interest earned to both the general fund and the campus improvement fund, as well as transfer recategorize ARPA funds to the general fund, which was something that was approved back in December. We're just making it official that that fund has the appropriations to be able to make that transfer.
So this is item number 19, a public hearing on.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's one more item on this. The second adjustment is the Campus Improvement Fund. Primarily, it's to decrease reserves by approximately $4 million and increase capital outlay appropriations by the same amount. And this is just to ensure that the fund has sufficient funds to pay for work completed on the courthouse that will end up being paid for in this fiscal year.
Thank you very much.
we can only hope that it'll all be done, right?
So this is a public hearing on the matter. So a resolution transferring appropriations for the ARPA fund and campus improvement fund as discussed. Is there anyone in the room to comment on this item? Is there anyone online for this item? Right, with the raised hand feature. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. So resolution number 2025-028 for discussions.
I have questions. Ready to make a motion if there's no other.
Sure.
Move approval of resolution number 2025-028, increasing or transferring appropriations within the fiscal year 25 Deschutes County budget.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
Commissioner Adair.
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes.
Thank you.
Very much. Item number 20, consideration of first and second reading and emergency adoption of ordinance for clear and objective housing text amendments. Goal 5.
Not as many numbers in this one. Good morning. For the record, my name is Tanya Saltzman, Senior Planner of the Community Development Department. So I'm here to present ordinance number 2025-009 to the board today for consideration of first and second reading and adoption by emergency. These, as just stated, are the amendments, which this is bucket 2 of the Clear and Objective project, which requires Deschutes County zoning code that relates to housing or housing adjacent subjects to be, for the language to have a clear and objective, excuse me, not objection, option. The public hearing for these Goal 5 related amendments, which pertain to wildlife, scenic areas, open spaces, and related resources, that public hearing was held on May 28th. At the time, the board closed the public hearing and conducted brief deliberations to move forward with adoption. I'll just briefly highlight the 2 very minor changes that have been made since that day. They're mostly kind of clerical. The first is in Chapter 1884081, Section F, Design Review Standards of the Landscape Management Combining Zone. Staff modified the proposed language to clarify the driveway access standards. Our new language unintentionally disallowed any driveways, which is probably not our goal.
Why would you want a driveway?
It's very clear and objective, but not really working. So we clarified that to require consolidation of driveway access. And then the second thing was what we have called throughout this process, along with our consultants, MIG, the switching station. So throughout the code and the various code packages, we've had a section of code that just provides those options and outlines the procedures that applicants have to follow, either choosing the clear and objective path or the discretionary path. And just purely organizational, we previously had this switching station in Title 18 as well as the other titles. We decided subsequently to move it to Title 22, which is our procedures ordinance, because it just seemed like a better fit there. So we changed the references throughout just to point that to Title 22 instead of Title 18. All the same language, just outlining those choices between clear and objective and discretionary. So pretty clerical there. And those were the only changes that have been made since that public hearing. As far as the ordinance goes, staff recommends the board conducts first and second reading today and adopts the ordinance by emergency with an effective date of July 1st, 2025. This is the date that state statute requires the clear and objective to be effective. It also gives us, as staff, a little bit of time to do some implementation work and get all of our forms ready, because now all of our forms have to, acknowledge this clear and objective option. So we want to, it's perfect timing to allow us to kind of get that ready. And subsequent clear and objective packages will be coming in the very near future, but staff recommends first and second reading today, emergency adoption by July 1st, and the ordinance in your package reflects that. And that's all I have as staff. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So one of the thoughts I have is that this is a big exercise And it really puts a lot of information kind of out front and center for even just the staff in the department to say, oh yeah, this is our code, kind of touching the whole package right now. So as I say, it was legislatively required, but it's a good moment to really take a look at the big picture, how the code flows, making the discussion, or the changes we just made with the road department, and moving these bits around. So it's interesting.
It's also provided us, and as we've said throughout this process, these are not meant to be policy choices, just
Yep.
clarification, but it has allowed us to kind of flag things maybe for the future, things we might want to fix or noodle with in the future, not as part of this package. But it's been, as you said, a good exercise for us to really pull it all apart and look at it carefully. So
It's like a supersized housekeeping package. So we have deliberated previously, so this is the proposal for first and second reading. Any other discussion or questions or?
I'm glad you fixed the driveways.
thanks, me too.
Just in terms of discussion, as mentioned, this was legislatively directed. I find it very interesting that, as we've gone through this exercise to make everything clear and objective, the same people who were, kind of at the, it was at the state level, it was the builders who wanted this, and at the local level, it's the builders who are begging to keep discretionary pathways in, even as we move towards clear and objective standards. So calls into question the whether the juice is worth the squeeze, in terms of the amount of work that our community development department has had to do on this. But it legislatively directed exercise, so we're doing it. With that, I'll move approval of first and second readings of ordinance number 2025-009 by title only.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded for first and second reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, calling for the vote, Commissioner Chang
Yes.
and Commissioner Dare.
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes. So at this time, ordinance number 2025-009, an ordinance amending Deschutes County Code Title 18 zoning ordinance to incorporate clear and objective housing standards in compliance with state law and declaring an emergency. Second reading. Ordinance number 2025-009, an ordinance amending Deschutes County Code Title 18 zoning ordinance to incorporate clear and objective housing standards in compliance with state law and declaring an emergency. So the effective date is July 1st is the proposal.
So I will move to adopt ordinance number 2025-009 by emergency effective July 1st, 2025.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes. Another big project.
Thanks very much. We appreciate
Thank you.
time on this relatively.
The next one we can't do it till
Yeah.
10, right? Huh? We can, okay. All right.
At this time, item number 21, public hearing, plan amendment and zone change for approximately 22.5 acres. We are 15 minutes early. I'm just thinking are all the parties here?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. For the record, Nicole Mardell, Senior Planner with Deschutes County Community Development. The applicant is not here yet, so if the board wouldn't mind, if we could just delay the start of
Yep.
the hearing till 10 a.m.
Yeah, let's do that. So at this time, either other items or we'll just take a break for 15 minutes as we rolled through our huge budget process.
What?
Any thoughts on?
Oh, estimates only. Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, this time we will just take a 15-minute break and we will reconvene right at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock. All right, we are back. This is the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting. At this time, item number 21, this is a 10 a.m. public hearing for a plan amendment and zone change. I'll start off with the script. This is the time and place set for a hearing regarding file number 24724-392 PA and 24724-393 ZC. This is a hearing on a Deschutes County Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Zone Change request for Cascades Academy. Staff will outline the hearing procedures that will be followed.
Excellent. Thank you, Chairman DeBonne. For the record, my name is Nicole Mardell, and I'm a senior planner with the Deschutes County Planning Division. Today, the Board of County Commissioners will take testimony and receive written evidence concerning a comprehensive plan amendment from agricultural and surface mining to rural residential exception area. The applicant also requests a corresponding zone change to rezone the subject property from exclusive farm use and surface mining to multiple use agricultural. And there might be a typo in the script there, Commissioner DeBonne. Apologies for that. All record materials are published on the project website, which is bit.ly/Cascades Academy. Today, the hearing will proceed as follows. First, staff will explain the hearing format and how to testify at today's hearing, followed by a brief presentation on the application. Then the testimony portion of the hearing will begin. The applicant will present first and will have 30 minutes. Agencies, if present, can testify and will have 10 minutes per agency. Then we'll move on to persons in support. They can testify with a time limit of 3 minutes per person, and then those in opposition will testify and will also have 3 minutes per person. Afterward, the applicant will have 10 minutes for rebuttal testimony, and last, staff may have some closing comments, or if the board requests, can answer any remaining questions. This is a hybrid public hearing with both in-person and remote participation options. Before starting your testimony, please provide your first and last name as well as your mailing address. For in-person participants, if you're wishing to testify, please fill out a blue sign-up sheet located in the box at the side of the room and submit that to the board's executive assistant, Brenda, who's located to the left of the dais. Chair DeBonne will call up in-person participants for their testimony, and after your name is called, please come up to one of the tables at the front of the room before beginning your testimony. Just to note, the hearing is being live streamed and recorded, so please do ensure that you're speaking into the microphone so we can capture that on the live stream and recording audio. For our remote participants, if you want to testify, you must be logged into Zoom or have called in using the Zoom dial-in option. When Chair DeBonne asks if anyone would like to testify, you will need to use the raise hand feature to notify the board. To do this, you need to use the raise hand button on your computer or smart device, or if you called in, dial *9. When it's your turn to provide testimony, you'll be promoted from an attendee to a panelist. You may experience a brief pause as your status changes. Once you have joined as a panelist, you'll be able to turn on your camera if you would like to. In addition to oral testimony, if anyone has written testimony to submit and you're in person, please hand that to me. If you're participating remotely, you can submit your written testimony to me via email at nicole.mardell@deschutes.org. Lastly, the chair and staff are responsible for conducting an orderly hearing. Any testimony or behavior which is deemed inappropriate will be addressed and may result in that member of the public being removed from the hearing.
At this time, does any commissioner have anything to disclose? And if so, please state the nature of same and whether you can proceed.
I have nothing to disclose other than I drive by it a lot coming back way.
I have nothing to disclose and I can proceed.
And I have nothing to disclose and I can proceed also. Does any party wish to challenge any commissioner, member of this hearings body, based on ex parte contacts, biases, or conflicts? Is there anyone remote with a raised hand feature? Seeing none, as no challenges are presented, prior to opening the hearing, does anyone have it? Procedural objections. Okay, two parts to this. So procedural objections for this public hearing. Is there anyone remotely? So seeing none, the hearing is now open. Staff will proceed with a brief staff report.
Excellent, Chairman DeBonne. Thank you very much. So I'll keep my staff presentation relatively brief, as the applicant will, of course, dive into more detail as they carry the burden of proof. But just for those who may not be familiar with the property, it's irregular in shape and located immediately south of the Tumalo rural community and due west of State Highway 20. The property is bordered by Obie Riley Road. To the east is south of a mini storage facility and north of the existing Cascades Academy campus. To the west are existing residential and farm uses. The subject property has 7 tax lots. The total area is 22.5 acres. Of that, 4.03 are zoned surface mine and 18.47 are zoned EFU. The surface mine zone portion of the property, the northernmost 3 parcels, are related to the mining site number 370, which is also located to the north of the property. This particular piece is designated as storage in our Goal 5 inventory for mineral and aggregate resources. We do not have a history of it being actively mined or containing significant minerals or aggregate material. There are 4 tax lots that are within the landscape management combining zone associated with State Highway 20 and the Deschutes River. Those 2 areas are shown in the crosshatch on the map there. The property also contains mapped wetland, which is likely associated with the Tumalo Town Ditch irrigation canal that's on the property. The EFU properties are also associated with the surface mining impact area due to their location near surface mine zone property. So as noted previously, the applicant is requesting approval of a comprehensive plan amendment to change the designation of the property from agricultural and surface mining to rural residential exception area and a corresponding zone change from EFU and surface mining to MUA 10. And I apologize, I am wearing outdated contacts, so I can't see the screen up there. But I think I do have a typo from our last presentation, so that should be MUA 10, not RR 10. I wanted to note that there's no Goal 3 exception being proposed. The applicant has provided evidence in the record that the property does not contain farmable soil and is incorrectly designated as agricultural land. And although no specific development plans are included in the application, the applicant has indicated the property will be used for expansion of the Cascades Academy School. The Deschutes County Hearings Officer held a public hearing on November 14th. 3 agency comments were received prior to that hearing, 2 of which noted general comments or just noting compliance with applicable standards. So a general comment from our building official and a note from the transportation planner that the proposal complies with the transportation planning rule. And we also received a comment from Tumalo Town Ditch noting a recent water rights transfer and easement located on the property. We also received at the hearing comments in opposition to the application from Central Oregon Land Watch. And on February 26th, the hearings officer issued a recommendation of denial. This was a conditional denial on the basis that the hearings officer found the record did not contain sufficient evidence demonstrating compliance with Goal 5 and the rezone's effect of allowing new uses that could potentially impact the scenic uses associated with the landscape management combining zone. So potentially negatively impacting scenic views associated with Highway 20 and the Deschutes River, and also asked for findings regarding the wetlands on the property. I wanted to note that the applicant did provide an economic, social, environmental, and energy analysis into the record to address these concerns. And as I noted during the work session, this hearings officer decision was issued again in February. And at the time, the board was reviewing several other similar applications. There was a similar hearings officer denial for Last Ranch, which the board approved recently. We did enter that decision into the record for this proceeding as well with the board findings for that item. The hearings officer, I also wanted to note that they did agree with the applicant on a few areas. So they did agree that the property does not meet the definition of agricultural land, that the surface mine zone portion of the property was intended for storage, not for active mineral extraction, and could be allowed for rezoning based on our code. And the uses in the MUA 10 zone have been acknowledged to be rural in nature, therefore no site-specific Goal 14 analysis is required. I also wanted to note the hearings officer did note that the applicant had not yet provided DLCD's soil report releases, which are required by the administrative rule. Since that time, we did get those releases from DLCD. They provided us to those in late May and again in early June for several of the tax lots. So those are now in the record. So that issue is no longer, is now resolved. I wanted to note, let's see, some comments received before the board hearing. In regard to that submitted EC analysis, we did get comments from Department of Land Conservation and Development from their Goal 5 coordinator, Amanda Punton. She provided some general comments on the EC and some guidance for the applicant. We also received 2 comments in support of the application, and those have been added to the record as of Monday. With that, I also wanted to note just a few items that came up during the board's work session that the applicant ideally will address today. The board did ask about the soil study and the breakdown of acreage studied, the percentage of specifically EFU land with class 7 and 8 soils versus kind of the percentage for the entirety of the property. The board also asked about school development in the EFU zone. So asking about the intent for and proposal for rezoning versus submitting a conditional use application and site plan review for a school use on the existing EFU zone property. And the board also asked about the disturbed area on tax lots 300 and 301. So just asking about a history of activities on the site and why it appeared to be, disturbed area compared to other portions of the property. And with that, at the end of today's hearing, the board will have a few options to move forward. It can choose to continue the hearing to a date and time certain, close the hearing and leave the written record open to a date certain, close the hearing and set a date for deliberations, and close the hearing and commence deliberations if desired. And with that, I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Any questions to get started?
No.
The questions I posed during the work session are the ones I'm interested in hearing about.
Okay. So now time for applicant. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Morning. My name is Tia Lewis. I'm an attorney for the applicant. Thank you for hearing our matter this morning. You have a PowerPoint to the extent that some of it's duplicative of staff presentation. I might skip a couple slides, but I will also try to be brief and address the questions that the board had from the work session. So sorry about the date on this. This was the date of the hearings officer's presentation, and I neglected to change it for today's date. I apologize. So as Nicole mentioned, the subject property is 22.5 acres, with 4 of that being surface mining, the northern 3 tax lots, and the remaining being EFU. It is immediately adjacent to the Knife River Storage Processing Facility. As many of you who have traveled this section of the county know, the Knife River Storage and Processing Facility dominates the landscape in this area, both from Highway 20 and the river. We do have support from the Knife River to change the remaining 4.3 acres in that surface mining site. It has not been used for storage or processing since the early 90s and has in fact been in separate ownership, private ownership, not a part of the aggregate facility. It's also adjacent to Tumalo State Park, and Tumalo State Park is between the subject property and the river, as well as between the subject property and Highway 20, which is important because there will be no vegetative disturbance related to the development of the subject property between the areas of Highway 20 and the river, because we don't own that property or have a part of that development. That one's, I'm going to skip that one. That's pretty much background. So again, the surface mining property is a part of 370, and we have no objection from the mining operator to change that. The portion of the property that's zoned EFU, the 18 acres, that was a surface mining site, and it was a surface mining site up until 2001, and it was actively mined. In 2001, it was changed from surface mining to EFU with no analysis of its farm capacity, no soils analysis, and no evidence in the record of prior agricultural use or the ability to use it for agricultural use. So we did a soils report. It's Exhibit 7 in the record, and I want to answer Commissioner Adair's question about that soils report. It did include the surface mining land, and the reason is because whenever you take surface mining land out of surface mining zoning, you need to establish what zone it's going to go into, and we needed to establish that it was not agricultural land and that it was not eligible for an EFU zoning. So we did include the surface mining land in the soils analysis. But the breakdown, the soil scientist did a separate soils report for each of our 7 tax lots, because in the past, opponents of these types of applications have argued that when you aggregate all of the tax lots, you're diminishing the agricultural value or obscuring the agricultural value by combining it with other land. And so we did a separate soil study for each of the 7 tax lots. And the breakdown and the percentages of each of that is found in our soil study on page 10. The soil study is detailed and long because it's a separate one for each lot. So there's a summary of the study. I don't know if it's in your record in color, but the summary of the study is on these pale yellow pages, and then each individual study is followed by those pale yellow pages. But on page 10, it breaks down each individual tax lot and its percentage of class 7 and 8 soils. And every tax lot has greater than 50% class 7 and 8 soils.
So have a step back here. You mentioned surface mining rezoned to EFU. Was there extraction on these parcels or just storage?
There was never storage or extraction on any of the surface mines. The parcels that are currently zoned surface mining, there's never been extraction or storage.
So I guess I'll just need to figure out which parcel's which there. I guess I didn't get to that.
Yeah, here, let's go back for a minute.
Yeah.
Big Bear area that is now EFU
Yep.
zoned was surface mine zoned and had mineral extraction.
And was mined, correct. So if you look at that picture up there, the top 3 parcels are the currently surface mine zoned, and they've always been either in some sort of residential use or they were separated from the storage and processing facility. They were originally owned by the operator prior to 1990, and then the ownership was separated in 90 from the surface mine operator to a private individual. And then she changed the zoning, or no, she kept it in surface mining zoning and then bought that lower property and changed that lower property in 2000 to back to EFU.
But there was extraction on the lower property.
There was extraction on the portion of the property that zoned EFU, the lower portion.
Yep.
And that was under surface mining site 304.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So those are the rezoning standards. I'm not going to go through each and every one of those because the hearings officer wrote a very detailed report on those. But the one thing I do want to point out is that the hearings officer ruled that we met all of the criteria for rezoning with the exception of the Goal 5 issue. And I'm going to get to the Goal 5 issue. But before I do, I want to make sure that I answer the rest of the questions that were related to the EFU and the school use, and then we'll talk about Goal 5. And we do have some people here to testify today to address Commissioner Chang's questions about the historic use. We have the prior owner of the property that owned it before the school bought it, and we also have school officials that will talk to you about the future plans and the current use as well. But one of the things I want to talk to you about is why we're changing the zoning from EFU to MUA 10 when a school is allowed in the EFU zone. And it's true, a school is allowed in the EFU zone, but it's not as simple as that. And this case is very similar to one you heard recently regarding Ben Parks and Rec District. even though it says a school in the EFU zone, and it is allowed in the county's code under 1816.031E, there are very limited allowance for schools in the EFU zone. It's a conditional use on non-high value farmland only, which, by the way, Commissioner Adair, that soil study that was done in 2001 that you mentioned, or 21 that you mentioned, was done to establish that the property did not contain high value soils. And that was a part of the school's plan to expand. And when they did that study, they confirmed that it didn't contain high value soils. But what they found is that their school expansion plans are still very narrowly limited with the EFU zoning on there. So one of the things is it's a conditional use and it has to be non-high value farmland. And then each and every application that they would go through in order to do any use is subject to the analysis of all the farm practices in the area, a site analysis of the existing farm capabilities, a soil analysis. It's only allowed for buildings essential to the operation of a school, which we all know that seems simple, but it's never simple with lawyers and opponents. Essential means a lot more things than we might think it might mean. And then it's all primarily for residents of the rural area. And the worst part is it's subject to the state administrative rules, which change frequently and which are not heavily, they don't allow a lot of public involvement in the administrative rule process. They don't allow a lot of legislative oversight, and they're changed by agencies that are non-elected officials. And and then you wind up with a zoned piece of property because we had to change the surface mining zone. The existing school is sitting on MUA 10 zone. So we would have surface mining MUA 10, the existing school MUA 10, and this little piece of EFU in the middle, 18 acres zoned EFU, with varying setbacks, varying dimensional standards, varying lot coverage. The setbacks in the EFU zone are significant, and these are small pieces of, we're talking about 18 acres, not 710 acres. So and by the way, this decision was not made lightly. The price to change the zoning on 22.5 acres costs the same as it does on 710. So it wasn't a decision that the school made without a lot of careful consideration about what the master plans were, what the future investment was, and how to move forward with a lot of expensive architectural designs and very sustainable building plans. That those expenses, they need the security to know that they're going to be able to get that project approved. So I hope that answers that question. The wetlands question we'll talk about in goal 5, but before I get to goal 5, I want to make sure that I've answered all those.
Can you explain how, so a school is a conditional use in EFU. What is the procedure, or what are the constraints in MUA for a school? Like, how is it different?
It is a conditional use in the MUA 10 zone, so we have some similar criteria. But a conditional use in the EFU zone contains all of the analysis of the agricultural practices in the area, the agricultural practices on the site, the impact that any of the buildings or structures or uses would have with agricultural activities in the surrounding area. Whereas the conditional use criteria in the MUA 10 zone is more related to a compatibility analysis for all of the surrounding uses, and it's not focused on the protection of farm uses and the protection of agriculture.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not subject to the state administrative rules, which are really the things that put a lot of additional regulatory and uncertain requirements on these types of projects. So I'm going to move on to goal 5 unless people have more questions about the EFU or the surface mining issues. And again, we will have testimony on the future plans as well as the current or the background and historical use of that EFU land. Okay. So the hearings officer ruled, and I want, if you want to read his decision on that issue, it's on pages think 10 through 11 of his decision. But he ruled that there was insufficient evidence in the record to establish compliance with Goal 5 because, and it was based entirely upon the LBNW decision that had come back from LUBA when the zone was being changed from EFU to rural industrial. That case went up to LUBA, and LUBA said the county did not adequately address whether or not all of the uses allowed under the rural industrial zone were considered when the LM zone was adopted and were considered when the county did its 1992 EC. And so you have to either do an EC or you have to establish an evidentiary basis and findings to support that you meet Goal 5 without an EC. And that LBNW decision came back, and that applicant did an EC, and it was not further appealed. In the interim, Last Ranch came forward, and it was under the same sort of scenario. The argument was that they needed to do an EC. They were going from EFU, I believe, to rural industrial as well. And that applicant did an EC, but the board, and then we came forward, and there was that applicant hadn't gotten back to you guys yet. We came, the hearings officer had only LUBA's remand decision to rely on and had no choice but to rule that we either needed to do an EC or we needed to supplement the evidentiary record because the 1992 EC that the county did was not sufficient. So fast forward, the board issues its decision in Last Ranch, which rules that no EC is required because the 1992 EC that the county did considered all development within these resources are protected for scenic reasons. And so the county considered all the development within these scenic corridors. In that case, it was the road, Highway 97, but it was the same EC that was done for rivers and streams as well as roads. It considered the development in general, but it also considered the development within the zones that were in those corridors. Well, the MUA 10 zone, the one we're going to, was clearly within both the Deschutes River corridor and the Highway 20 corridor at the time of the 1992 EC, and that evidence is sufficiently in the record. The county considered all of the development that would have occurred that could occur under the MUA 10. And that was our argument, but the hearings officer was left with nothing but the LUBA decision and didn't have the benefit of the Last Ranch decision. The Last Ranch decision ruled that the EC was not required. So now here we are, we have both the 1992 EC in the record plus our own EC, which establishes compliance with Goal 5. And it's what's really interesting about this piece of property. So the property is in orange. The hatch marks for the water for the Deschutes River are blue, and the hatch marks for the Highway 20 are purple. The subject property is not adjacent to either one of these Goal 5 resources, and as I mentioned, in between the subject property and both of these resources is the Tumalo State Park, which is heavily vegetated and which will stay that way. We have, regardless of what development happens on the Cascades Academy land. We're 250 feet at our nearest point from the river and separated topographically. You cannot see the school from the river. We're 800 feet from Highway 20 and also separated by distance as well as vegetation and topography, but you can barely see the road or the school from Highway 20. So this is a view from Highway 20 headed east, and this is as you are heading up the grade and you look to the west and you see the Cascade Natural Gas Facility. Again, the landscape is really dominated by, and this is as you head further up the grade, there's a big berm, and then you can't really see anything. You can't see the school at all as you're heading west. The only way you can really see the school from Highway 20 is as you're heading east down the hill. And so in the distance is the storage and processing facility, and then there's also the storage facility. And then you can barely see the roof line of the school. In the next picture, you can see it a little bit better. Oops, sorry, that's not it. Yeah, I think in that picture, you can see the dark black roof line of the school.
Tia, could you go back? Could you go back one
Mhm,
picture?
mhm.
Or back one?
One more?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Back maybe two more.
More? Okay.
That one.
Okay.
If all those junipers weren't there, would you be able to see the school?
I don't know because of the grade, but it's possible.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's possible. The grade change as you head up that hill and you look over, it really is obscured by this big berm. You can see it on the way down, and if the junipers weren't there on the way down, you would see it better. But on the way up, it's pretty difficult to see it because of the topography. But again, the land in between the school and us is state land, state park land. Let's see if we can keep going here. I think that was the end. So, and as was discussed during the LM zone, we have not asked that the LM zone be removed. The development will remain subject to LM permitting, and it will be the new LM zone that you just adopted because we don't have any development applications in play. So this current application doesn't change the applicability of the newly adopted LM zone when we come forward with future master planning applications. So I do have Julie here who wants to testify about the school, and then I have we have some members of that will testify in support. And then I do want to do a brief rebuttal to the extent that there's opposition testimony. And I'll also be available to answer any questions. Okay.
Yep, thank you. Hello.
I believe I need to state my full name and address, correct? So Julie Amberg, address is 1019 Northwest Stanium Road, Bend 97703.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for your service. As Tia mentioned, I'm currently the head of school at Cascades Academy, and I've been at the school for 20 of our 22 years. And I'm here today to respectfully request your support of our application to rezone a portion of our property from EFU to MUA 10. A little bit about Cascades Academy. We're PK through 12, 245 students. We're pretty small as schools go. And our mission is about delivering meaningful, challenging, and experiential learning to inspire lifelong learners who are socially responsible individuals. For today's discussion, I'd really like to highlight two core elements of our mission: our commitment to experiential education and our commitment to social responsibility, because these values guide our decisions every day, and they also guide how we plan for the future of our campus and our programs. I'm one of the few faculty members who remember back to the first 10 years of the school when we were on Studio Road behind the main post office, kind of in the heart of Midtown there. And when we were able to build our Tumalo campus on our original 15 beautiful acres, that was back in 2013. And it was a dream really made possible by the generosity of a lot of our families and private supporters.
Real quick. So we can probably drop that timer because this was like 12 minutes left of the applicant time. Is that what your intention was? Yep, good. Okay, making sure we're on the same page. He was on it too. So I just didn't need you'd feel pressured for the 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Don't give me too much time because I could go on.
We'll start counting down here.
Okay. You'll give me the high sign. I think I mentioned that we've been able to do what we've been able to do really through the generosity of our families, because a lot of folks assume that private schools like ours have endowments and deep financial reserves, and that's really not the case for Cascades Academy. I like to call us sort of like a 22-year-old recent college graduate. We have big ideals and lots of vision, but not a lot of depth in our bank account. And we really do depend on community to support to do all the things that we want to do. But from the start, we've approached our campus development really with intentionality and a lot of commitment to environmental stewardship. When we first built our original campus, we specifically chose an architect who specialized in LEED standards and who would thoughtfully integrate the building into the beauty of the natural landscape. We invested substantially in renewable energy sources, whether that's our geothermal sister or our solar panels. And I was part of the team who painstakingly walked around the campus during that design process and saved as many trees as we possibly could. We've proven to be excellent neighbors and committed stewards of the land and the environment, always instilling these values within our students as well in our experiential learning programs. Between 2016 and today, we've had some pretty amazing opportunities to acquire some adjacent parcels of land. And honestly, this has really allowed us to safeguard the educational environment for our students and hopefully maintain the continuity and really the beauty of our campus footprint. Now, as we want to plan for the future, we believe that to plan effectively, we believe it's essential to unify our zoning under the MUA 10 because, as Tia already explained, the current EFU zoning is simply too restrictive and does not reflect the true character, usage, or potential of the land. Moreover, the conditional use permitting process for EFU parcels is very complex and cost prohibitive for a school of our size and our limited resources. The truth is, we don't know exactly what we want to do on the north parcels of land, but having been part of community development and campus development, I know that when we do know, we want to be ready and able to do so. We've talked about additional classrooms. We've talked about hydroponic gardens. We've talked about community gardens, additional trails for our students to run and train and just be connected to the natural beauty. And I also really want to just honor and acknowledge Landwatch's opposition. I have a great deal of respect for the work that they do. My own son's photo is on the front page of their website. And while today, we're on opposite sides of this zoning matter, I'm very confident that any future development on this land will be deeply aligned with both of our organizations' values. And finally, I guess I just want to conclude that this has certainly been a learning process for me in my role. And over the last year, we've had to hire consultants, soil scientists, traffic engineers, agricultural and environmental consultants to develop the evidence to demonstrate compliance with the zone change criteria. It takes a lot of time and money to do this well. We're grateful for Tia's stewardship of the process for us. But to be honest, this is time and money that we'd rather be investing in our students and investing in the next generation of environmental stewards, whether they become part of environmental groups or part of our local government. Your decision today helps ensure that Cascades Academy can continue serving as a socially responsible educational institution for generations to come. And I thank you for your time and consideration and respectfully ask that you support our application for this zoning change. Thank you.
That concludes the applicant's presentation unless you have further questions. And again, I'll be available to answer them after the testimony.
I do have a question or two. All of this land use, planning, state land use system stuff it sounds like it's fairly new to you. I just want to lay out the concerns about doing a rezone like this and give you a chance to respond to those. Once these lands are rezoned to MUA 10, there's a little bit more than 20 acres. That would create the opportunity to either develop or sell the land for development of two very prime located, very expensive homes. So this is a substantial money-making opportunity. You've mentioned that the school doesn't have a big endowment, so there might be motivations to pursue those opportunities to generate funds so that you can pursue the mission of your school, which I have known many students who have come through Cascades Academy. I think you're doing a great job with your education. But in terms of the land use and growth management concerns of this area, I don't necessarily think we need two new $5 million home sites in that part of the county. And then you also mentioned that you're not really sure what you're going to do in that northern area yet. Which Tia mentioned the Ben Park and Rec rezone that we just went through a few months ago. In that case, it was pretty clear that that land would be used for a park. In this case, I'm I'm anxious because you said you don't really have a clear vision yet for how the school is going to expand into the property. So one of the questions I'd like to ask is, would you consider kind of tabling this rezone application until such time that you have a more clear idea of what the school expansion is going to look like, and then can speak more specifically to we need this rezone because this component of the school that we want to do is going to be a pain in the butt to get approved if this is still EFU zoned, for example. So just that's the concern, and just at the high level, I think it would be great if you're able to provide more assurances to people that this, when rezoned, this property will ultimately be part of the expansion of a really cool campus.
Can I speak to the $5 million home question?
He's asking these questions.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. No. And Tia can help too.
Well, yeah, no, I can definitely speak. So I'll just share that. It's maybe a well-known fact. Schools, we don't like neighbors because neighbors, they tend to sometimes not like schools. And so I just speak the truth here. So when we had the ability to purchase the land, it was so that the school could have the autonomy to protect its own campus and to be able to develop the property only for students. We have zero interest in selling this and turning it into a moneymaker for the school. That just isn't how schools think about acquiring adjacent property. We really, I hate to be so crass about this, we do it to protect our current environment. So I totally respect and understand why you're wondering about that and why you might have made the connection that, we're looking at this to be a moneymaker for the school in terms of residential. That's absolutely the opposite of how we think about land like this. We, everything we do at Cascades Academy always comes down to this question: is what we're doing in the best interest of students? And what's in the best interest of students is protecting that land and allowing students to access that land. It is a beautiful piece of property. I have met with the former director of Ben Parks and Rec to get his opinion on how could we turn this into a beautiful natural space. These are the things that we're thinking about. We have zero desire to develop it in any sort of way where we would be putting a neighbor on our property who would have any number of opinions about young kids running around making noise all day long. Yeah, exactly. So I just want to just address that as explicitly as I possibly can. That is absolutely never within the context of what we're considering for the future property. I think, I don't, in terms of what we could do, really, I think that's where Tia has been a helpful counsel to us, and just in terms of, I'll just give an example. 20 years ago, we weren't talking about STEM. It was barely even an acronym. And then here we are 20 years later, and we now have 3 STEM labs. And I could have never predicted 20 years ago that that was going to be a huge programmatic element of the school. And I just can't predict what the next future ideas are going to be. Is that going to be more outdoor education spaces? Is that going to be? And so I think what we're asking for is every time the next programmatic idea comes up, we feel it's prohibitive to then have to go back through the process and go back through the process and go back through the process. Because one of the things about being young and nimble is that like to be able to go from, wow, we can do this great thing for kids, and for us to have the flexibility to act on that right away, rather than having to go through another year plus process to get approval for that. And so that's the honest truth of why we're trying to do this now. And I understand your concern, and I'll let Tia add on to that.
About this until we know more, because the school was in the process of master planning all of these parcels when they hired me. And they had started the process with the county. They had submitted some designs. They were working with Hannaberry Eady, and which is a fantastic architectural firm, and did the original school buildings. And I stopped them and said, we have to change the zoning, because if we don't, you are going to spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in architectural design and fees with no guarantee that you can build these buildings or design or get these projects approved. And so that is why we're changing the zoning now. It's completely unrealistic to expect them to spend that kind of money to master plan a school expansion with no guarantee that they'll get those projects approved. And that's why we're coming to you with the zone change.
But did that master planning process indicate certain kinds of elements that the school wanted to develop that you have specific legal concerns about being able to get through EFU zoned conditional use? Or are you just kind of being preemptive about this?
I have specific legal concerns about all of the elements in the master plan because of the restrictions in the EFU zone. We don't know what essential buildings to a school operation mean. Just as Julie said, 20 years ago, a STEM lab might have not been viewed as an essential element to a school operation, and now it is. We don't know what the state's going to do with regard to the administrative rules. We don't know that the school serves primarily a rural population. There are a lot of restrictions in the EFU zone that we may or may not meet as we go forward. And we can't spend tens of thousands of dollars only to find out that that rule got changed last year. Or
Do you have specific examples or precedents from other parts of the state of Oregon that give you concerns? Examples or precedents of proposed school developments in the EFU that have been held up or got really gummed up in the conditional use process?
30 years of land use permitting experience. That's all I can say. I don't have specific ones that I could point to right off of the bat, but I do. I have been permitting these projects for a long time.
I'm familiar with your experience, Tia. I'm just trying to understand kind of how real the concerns are about the conditional use process for a school use.
They're very real. They're very real. I've spoken to you specifically about the language that we would have to meet and the soil studies that would have to be done for every application. So and all of these applications are different. So even if I had a specific one, it would differ from this one. The county's language in its code is different than language in other codes. And then we have administrative rules that seem to change annually. So we have very specific concerns. But this school, we permitted this school in 2010, and we had a lot of community opposition. And this school is now a gem to the community and is embraced by the community because of the operational characteristics and the design intentions and the quality of the materials that they've used to put this school in place, and the care for the landscape.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit about what the community opposition in 2010 looked like?
A lot of it was traffic. That was pre-roundabout. A lot of it was visual impacts to both the Tumalo State Park, the river. People didn't seem to be too concerned about Highway 20's visual aesthetics, but noise.
And Knife River's right there. So, yes. Who's going to be louder?
And I applaud those concerns and considerations. I can speak to the fact that our gymnasium is definitely 10 feet too short because of those restrictions. And that's okay. You know, I think we want to work within that natural landscape. We understand the landscape management zone. We gratefully and proactively want to abide by those because those requirements are part of our mission and core values of Cascades Academy. So we again, I've already mentioned this, but to be stewards of that land, it's, as you mentioned, Commissioner Chang, it's a really special part of our region, and we take very seriously frankly, the honor and the gift to be stewards of that land. And that is absolutely what we would take into consideration for any possible future development.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we have possible agency comments, and this is the way our schedule, our hearing procedure works. So agencies, if present, do we have anyone representing agency or online with the raised hand feature? So at this time, persons in support testimony for 3 minutes. So Heather, you have to help me with your last name. And then Terry Fiddler will be following.
Hello, my name is Heather Horaeus. It's a hard one to say.
I
There's
might
a lot of
try to
vowels.
like that. I was just making sure.
And you want my address, is that correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's 18868 Ridge Line Drive, Bend 97703. I come here before all of you today wearing two hats. First, as a parent of 3 students at Cascades Academy, and second, as chair of the Board of Trustees. I'm here to respectfully request your support for our application to rezone a portion of our property. When our family was researching schools for our children, one moment in particular drew us to Cascades Academy. During an open house, head of school, Julie Amberg, who you just heard from, opened the gathering with a heartfelt land acknowledgement, honoring the indigenous peoples who came before us and recognizing the land the school now stewards. I'd like to share the closing lines of that acknowledgement. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. Although frequently read at community gatherings, this sentiment is not merely ceremonial. It's a guiding principle that is deeply embedded in the school's mission, vision, values, and daily practice. As a parent, I've witnessed firsthand the powerful education my children and their peers receive at Cascades Academy. I've seen how the curriculum and the school culture deeply connect students to the natural environment and foster socially responsible individuals who have internalized their role as caretakers of the land, recognizing their impact on the greater world. I often find myself saying that Cascades Academy does not just talk the talk. It truly walks the walk. The school lives its mission every day. Examples of this commitment and action that have touched my children's lives include, but are certainly not limited to, the Middle School Eco Club's successful advocacy for environmental legislation in Salem, our traveling school and outdoor expeditions that immerse students in rivers, mountains, deserts, and oceans, all while experiencing how to care for and advocate for these wild spaces. And student-led partnerships with local organizations to protect and preserve nearby forests and the river. On an organizational level, year after year, the school is recognized as one of top 100 nonprofits and top 100 green places to work in Oregon. This speaks volumes about the school's service to the community and its environment. As a board member, my 2 most important responsibilities are ensuring the school's long-term financial health and making decisions that positively shape its future. The zoning change directly supports both goals. It enables thoughtful evolution that aligns with the school's values and the broader community's character. It will help the school streamline its future development efforts, save finite resources, and provide a commonality of zoning of the school's full campus. Cascades Academy has a strong track record as a respectful land steward and a good neighbor. With your support, this rezoning will allow the school to continue evolving as a leader in experiential, outdoor-based, and socially responsible education. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Fiddler.
Good morning. My name's Terry Fiddler. My address is Post Office Box 236, Canyon City, Oregon. That's in Grant County. I'm the previous landowner before the school purchased it. There's not much I can add to what's already been commented on, other than maybe a couple things. One would be in terms of the agricultural use of the land, what it's capable of doing, and I can tell you what it's not capable of doing, and that is producing money, enough money or income to even pay the taxes on that property. It's very, very limited use in terms of agricultural use. That happens to be the zoning. The other thing I'd like to comment on is there seems to be a concern of visual impact. And after living there as long as I have, I can tell you that the property is very private, very hidden. Probably most of you would never know it's there. The one place you can actually see any impact on that property is up on Tumalo Road, leaving Tumalo up on a high spot before Swally Road. Coming down that grade, if you look at the right spot, you can see the top of the aspen trees at that property. And that's only visual impact that would allow you to know that that property even exists there. The structures, the home, they're all concealed. I believe the school will have that same benefit on that property. People probably won't even know it's there, other than maybe traffic and their reputation. Other than that, I can't comment and add a lot more to what's already been discussed. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Mr. Fiddler, did the land have water rights associated with it during the time that you owned
it? It did. Yes.
And those have gone back to the irrigation district, or?
The land continues to have water rights, and most of it is leased back to the river. It's not being applied. And the property that was tax lot 301 and 300, there's no water on them. That property's all been the rock in aggregate removed off of that. That's what the dip in the low area is there.
And which irrigation district is that?
Say again?
Which irrigation district is that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, which irrigation district?
That's Tumalo Irrigation District. There's two districts, Tumalo Irrigation and Tumalo Town Ditch, I think one of the persons commented on that being a wetland. That was a concern of a wetland. Was that ditch going through? That's the only portion of that ditch that runs clear through, starts at the state park, runs through Tumalo. The only portion of the ditch that's open happens to go through that property. The rest of it's all been piped. And that would be an easy thing to do there as well.
Thank you very much for joining us. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. So anyone else in support? Anyone online? Anyone here for opposition? Anyone online? Okay. Oh, yeah, maybe there's, good. I'm glad we're taking time to wait for somebody to be engaged. So somebody remotely.
Good morning, Chair DeBone, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Rory Isbell. I'm a staff attorney with Central Oregon Land Watch. Our address is 2843 Northwest Lilo Drive, Suite 200, Bend, Oregon 97703. I want to apologize for not being there in person today. I'm over in Salem for meetings all day, so I'm beaming in remotely for this hearing. Landwatch does oppose the proposed plan amendment zone change that would remove the agricultural designation and EFE zoning from this property. The most important point I want to make for you today is that the subject property is high value farmland. This is irrigated high value farmland, and I want to point out that only 16% of all of the EFU lands, private EFU lands in Deschutes County, is classified as high value farmland. This is the very best farmland that we have in Deschutes County. It has water rights and it has high value soils. That's not only true, or that not only matters sort of relatively to the rest of Deschutes County, but it matters in the legal analysis as well. And that's because there's an Oregon administrative rule that says when property is high value farmland, a county may not consider any soils information other than the United States Natural Resource Conservation Service Web Soil Survey information. That's OAR 6600330030 subpart 8. The hearings officer's recommendation really errs in how they interpreted this rule. They said that the first step in that analysis is you get to determine whether it's agricultural land at all, and then you look at whether it's high value farmland. That's not what the rule says. The rule says that if it is high value farmland, based on the soils that NRCS has found on it, then that's the only information you can look at. You can't consider other information, including the hired soil scientist report that the applicant submitted to support their application here. Final point I want to make is that the hearings officer found when Landwatch raised the issue of the 2001 rezoning decision that rezoned the currently EFU portion of the property to EFU. It used to be zoned surface mine as well, and in 2001 it was rezoned to EFU. That required that full reclamation of that former mining site had occurred, and that 2001 decision found that it indeed had occurred. So when Landwatch raised the issue that that reclamation had not fully occurred, the hearings officer said that that argument was barred as a collateral attack on that 2001 decision. I want to point out today that the same is true for the applicant. We've heard the applicant argue that the soils here are not agricultural, they're not high value soils. Well, there's a final county land use decision saying that reclamation has occurred, and that reclamation plan requires replacing high value soils with an average depth of 2 feet, supplemented with additional root growth material, planted with Siberian wheatgrass and alfalfa and wheat. The applicant's position is that has not occurred. We submit as a legal argument that's a collateral attack on that 2001 final county land use decision as well. I know I'm over time. If you'll indulge me, when it comes to Goal 5 and the scenic views, the EC analysis submitted by the applicant actually proposes no protection for those Goal 5 resources. Now, I heard the applicant's counsel say something different, so I wanted to make sure to point this out. The EC analysis actually submitted says to allow these conflicting uses of the MUA zone without limitation. So to me, that means not applying the landscape management zone, which would make this property unique from every other landscape management zoned property in the county where we do try to screen those visual impacts and protect the Goal 5 resources. Thank you for the time. I have submitted written comments as well.
Yep, great. Thank you so much. Okay, is there anyone else? That was technology working at its finest there. Seeing no one else, time for a rebuttal, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Tia Lewis, for the record. I'll be brief. First, the administrative rule that Rory cites in the argument that Landwatch has made that the high value soils cannot be changed by an Order 1 soil survey has been argued and lost throughout the cases, and I will submit cases into our record. I'm going to ask that we leave the record open to address both the Landwatch testimony as well as the comments that we received on the EC from the state. But that argument has been raised and lost in these cases. The soil study establishes that this is not high value farmland, and the NCRS reports are based on very large scale studies that were not site-specific. So I will submit argument to that effect in case.
So you're saying that, yeah, the soil studies, certified soil people published is going to be appropriate to justify the soil conditions as
It
yeah.
is the most accurate measure
Yeah.
of the soil conditions, and the fact that the idea that you couldn't study the site-specific soil conditions to establish that they don't meet a map that was placed on the property that has no site-specific studies is absurd. So there is case law that says that, and the administrative rule that he cites does not say that you cannot use an Order 1 soil survey to establish the true classifications of the soil on the property when you've done a site-specific study. With regard to the 2001 rezone decision, to the extent that reclamation was required and not done, that 2001 rezone decision is a final county land use decision, and it was not challenged. We didn't own the property at that time, nor did we have any control over whether or not the reclamation was done. But we did have a soil study done on the current site to establish what the soil capabilities were. If the prior owner was required to have placed soil on the site as a part of the reclamation process, it was up to the county to have required that to have happened prior to the rezone, and that did not happen. And that's a collateral tack on a final decision that we had no control over. And lastly, the EC does not propose no protection. What the EC is an evidentiary document. The EC establishes that the corridor is that the scenic views in the corridor are not going to be impacted by MUA 10 development on the subject property. It doesn't establish what zoning classifications are being applied for, nor does it establish whether or not the LM zone would continue to apply. The application itself is only to rezone the property from EFU and surface mining to MUA 10, retaining the LM overlay. So the EC is an evidentiary document, not a request for a part of the application. And then lastly, I would like to talk about an open record period as well as some findings. In our opinion, that hearings officer's findings are thorough and complete with regard to the Goal 3 and Goal 14 issues. And we would like the board to be able to adopt those findings and then issue additional findings based on Goal 5 and the small amount of rebuttal evidence that would have come into the record during this hearing. So I would like to keep the record open if we could for an additional 14 days, and then we would do 7 and 7 for rebuttal and final if that's acceptable, so that we could address I understand Landwatch, Rory said he did submit something in writing. I haven't seen it. So I want to make sure that we address the issues that he's raised in that written submission, as well as Nicole mentioned there were some comments that came from the state on our EC. So we want to be able to address those with the open record period being open for 14 days, and then 7 for rebuttal and 7 for final. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at the letter from, I believe it's Amanda Punton from DLCD. This one is dated June 9th, and if you could address those issues, that would be excellent.
I plan to do that as a part of the rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, possibly for Tia, possibly for staff about this. I'm wondering if we do approve this rezone application, if it's possible to create some kind of a condition that the property will be used for a school expansion. Just to guard against that concern that I raised, that, owning a piece of land that would fetch a pretty price if it was developed as luxury rural residential development is a temptation that is we want to avoid, and so I'm just wondering if in the I forget what the final document that's written is called, but is it possible to actually create some kind of a condition like that in the final document for an application decision like this.
Hi Commissioners, again for the record, Nicole Mardell, Senior Planner. I did already invite Will Groves to come up here and discuss this as well. I would say it would be out of our standard practice, based on my experience at the county, but Will has significant more experience here at Deschutes County, so he can provide more context.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, your planning manager, Will Groves. And, you know, we don't do a lot of this, but it has been considered before hearings officers. There's a limited use combining zone that is a overlay zone that can be put on properties to limit those properties to specific uses. I know we've used those up in the Deschutes Junction area for some of the, on the east side of the highway, some of the properties over there to limit the uses to specific uses. I haven't seen something trying to strike out residential uses from a residential zone. So it may not be appropriate tool for that, but you know, we could leave it to the applicant on rebuttal or on open record to see if that, you know, is precluded as a method of addressing your concern. Certainly there are conditions of approval. I'm going back 15 years at this point, thinking about Karen Green, our former hearings officer. And I know she had some concerns about effectively using a plan amendment zone change to strike uses out of the zone, but I can't remember what those specifically were. So it's an interesting question. There are things that work in similar ways, but we would need to research a little bit. To my recollection, we've never done anything like strike the primary use that the zone is intended for as part of the plan amendment zone change.
Well, that's something I would love to see. I don't know what that looks like and whether it's, you know, allowable or not allowable, but just putting it out there.
I can speak to it briefly on the applicant's behalf, but I haven't spoken with the clients about this. But I don't know if you had the opportunity to read the final argument I submitted in the Bend Parks and Rec file regarding a conditional rezone and the reasons why we were not agreeable to that under the Parks and Rec file. And those concerns are very similar in this case, which is not related to what the ultimate use of the property will be. The school intends to use it for school purposes and not residential, consistent with Julie's testimony. However, placing a condition like that in the land use record subjects the school to significant risk after having spent all the time and money and over a year to get in front of you. The notice that went to DLCD did not include that sort of condition. It's a notice that goes out at the beginning of this process. The notice that went to the public, the notice that went to people that came to the hearing, all of the proceedings up until now, it subjects the school to significant risk, as well as plays into one of the arguments that spot zoning to allow specific uses in specific zones is prohibited. So there's a lot of legal reasons as to why a conditional rezone or a condition like that would create problems. That doesn't mean that a private agreement with that kind of restriction couldn't be put in place. So that's just briefly, without having spoken with my client, my concerns about that sort of thing, but not opposed to the idea of this use being.
Providing assurances to the community that this is going to be a school.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. That was rebuttal. At this time, the request for the record to be open for 14 days. And then 7 and 7 is what the applicant has stated.
Yes, Chairman DeBone. So just want to confirm this maybe with a nod from Tia, but I believe 14 days for the initial new evidence and testimony open record period that would end on Wednesday, July 2nd at 4 p.m. Rebuttal would then be 7 days later on Wednesday, July 9th at 4 p.m. And final argument, which is only the applicant can provide open record materials, would be Wednesday, July 16th.
There's a nod, yes. Acknowledgement. Yep. Okay, so that's the proposal for 2-week open record period and then rebuttal and final. Is there support for that?
Sounds appropriate.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So yeah, at this time, the oral portion of this public hearing, if there's support, can be closed, and that will be the written record window. Anything else we need to do formally or?
So just one more item. So for folks who might be participating in the open record period, a couple of items to cover. All submittals should be sent to me, Nicole Mardell, Senior Planner. Electrics submittals should be sent to nicole.mardell@deschutes.org. Deschutes County does not take responsibility for retrieving information from a website link or personal cloud storage device. And please do not wait until the last minute to submit your materials. They must be received by the county's server by 4 p.m. on the date of the deadline, and there can sometimes be a couple-minute delay, so please get that in early. And again, those open record periods are new evidence and testimony accepted until July 2nd at 4 p.m., rebuttal accepted the following week until July 9th at 4 p.m., and final argument, which is the applicant only, will be accepted until Wednesday, July 16th. And with that, I thank the board.
Do we want another formal motion with the vote on the closing the oral? Okay, yeah, so it sounds like we're on the same page here. 14 days open record period, closed oral part of this public hearing. Thank you very much. All right. At this time, item number 22. Deliberations of a remand Thornburg destination resort modification to the final master plan.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jacob Ripper. I'm a principal planner with the Deschutes County Planning Division. My apologies, my computer battery is running low. I'm going to plug it in really.
There you go. That wasn't so bad at all.
So I prepared.
Yep.
So on May 7th, the Board of County Commissioners held a public hearing to consider a decision on remand from the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, or LUBA, regarding an application for an amendment to the final master plan for the Thornburg Destination Resort. This amendment request was initially applied for in August of 2022. Public hearings were conducted and a final local decision was issued in April of 2023. Public hearings following appeals to LUBA and the Court of Appeals, the county's decision was ultimately remanded back to the county by LUBA in February of 2025. So in other words, this is not a brand new proposal, rather it's a continuation of a previous application. And the applicant initiated these remand proceedings on April 7th, making the final decision due by August 5th. Staff has prepared a memo and matrix to aid the review process. The matrix highlights the 3 remand issues and notes certain objections related to the record and process. Copies are available on the table by the door, or for those online, these can be found in the agenda packet. Several topics and questions have arose in both testimony and written materials, some extending beyond the scope of this remand review. So for clarity for everyone watching, LUBA's remand focuses on 3 specific topics, and the record was reopened solely for the economic analysis topic. Once the board provides guidance and findings on these remand topics in today's deliberations, staff will provide a draft written decision based on these conclusions. Given scheduling availability and the strict 120-day timeline for remands, I anticipate returning with a draft decision by July 23rd. So at this point, I welcome any initial questions about procedure or any comments before addressing the decision matrix.
I'll just acknowledge, yeah, I mean, the decision matrix is down to a pretty, narrow yes, no decisions on this. There's quite a record here, and there's information that's been coming in from the community. So, and a lot of history in this project there. So, I do support getting down to this narrow decision for this 120-day remand of this modification, acknowledging that there's a real big picture here.
All right, so going to the matrix, the first remand topic is about the Fish and Wildlife Management Plan and the no net loss standard. Opponents assert that submitting the FWMP to OWRD alone fails to meet the required no net loss standard, as it lacks enforceable conditions and doesn't adequately address variations in aquifer health and stream flows under climatic and drought conditions. Thornburg asserts that the FWMP's mitigation strategies ensure compliance with the no net loss objectives, validated by technical expertise and surpassing regulatory standards. The applicant emphasizes collaboration with ODFW and OWRD, using water rights cancellation, aquifer recharge, and juniper thinning to create a unified mitigation program that achieves or surpasses the no net loss standard for habitat. So the board's decision on this point is, does the board find the 2022 Fish and Wildlife Management Plan is sufficient to satisfy the no net loss standard with respect to groundwater sources for fish habitat mitigation?
Well, I'll say a few things about this. This Fish and Wildlife Management Plan at the high level sounds good, promises to reduce the amount of golf courses, conserve more water. But I would hesitate to say that this meets the no net loss standard without some verification by biologists who aren't being paid by the applicant. And we have heard from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. We've heard from biologists from the Warm Springs tribes that they have concerns about the adequacy of this Fish and Wildlife Management Plan. Enforcement mechanisms to ensure that these stated water resource benefits of this plan will actually come to fruition. Inadequacy of monitoring provisions to ensure those things. So without hearing from again biologists who are not being paid by the applicant that this Fish and Wildlife Management Plan is sound, I can't support a no net loss. I can't support a no net loss finding.
And I do go the opposite direction here, scientifically credible and operationally robust. There's a lot of water rights that have been transferred in support of this, showing improvements to flow, temperature, stream analysis. The credentials of the experts are the credentials of the experts. So I wouldn't come to the same conclusion there. Proceeding with this Fish and Wildlife Management Plan seems prudent at this time. So I do support. I would say yes.
There were actually 4 PhDs that were part of the analysis, and then 2 other experts working on the plans for the no net loss. And reading some of the testimony also from the decisions, I would have to say yes. There was a quote from,
Go ahead.
But we have to make a judgment call. We have to conclude that no net loss standard is met. Therefore, there is no impact by the Thornburg proposal. This is in the letter, a quote from Senior Judge DeVore. Anyway, we have to, therefore, there is no impact on the fishery resource protected by the treaty. We recognize that not everyone is persuaded by the modeling, but we recognize that, but we have to make a judgment call according to the judge.
I would just add one more piece to this discussion of the no net loss criteria. And that is, the Oregon Water Resources Department is invoked by both sides of this issue. And we are not talking about the entirety of the Oregon Water Resources Department's, findings or analysis of this issue. Parallel to this land use planning process, we know that the Oregon Water Resources Department has determined that we have suffered from substantial, or rather significant, groundwater level declines in the Deschutes Basin, particularly in the area of this proposed groundwater pumping. And they are using that as a basis to deny, at least currently, to deny a major groundwater permit for this development. So, if the Oregon Water Resources Department over here is saying that this is a really impacted basin and that cannot bear this additional extraction, then I think we should note that when we're talking about no net loss standards and this land use application.
All right, shall we move to item 2?
Yeah, so we could acknowledge 2-1 on the conclusion on that first item, and we'll move to the second one.
Okay. So the second item is substantial change in the economic analysis. Appellants in LUBA describe the golf course reduction as a substantial change and needing a new economic analysis. Opponents argue reliance on outdated assumptions and question job and housing projections, and whether losses are obscured by selective accounting. The applicant responds that the golf course reduction is operational, not fundamental to the resort, and that the fiscal impact analysis supports continued job creation, business benefit, and tax revenue. New investments and amenities are offered as offsets, and updated economic assessments indicate ongoing viability with these changes. So the board's decision point for this one is, does the updated economic record address and meet all impacts per DCC 1813-070 C3 and 4, which is the economic analysis?
So, I mean, I support the fact that this is, the big picture golf course versions are going to be changing from, and by reducing and having more open space here. So it's exciting. Basically, it's an exciting moment to take a look at the economic, record. What's going to be out there now? It's evolved a little bit over time, dialing it in. But I mean, I do support the fact that this. Well, I guess I'm having a hard time because some of these words end up being really need to be real precise. But yeah, let's just leave it there for now, and then I'll come back.
Jacob, because the parties involved actually cut way back on the water they're using and they're using 1/3 less water. And that is clearly a significant drop in usage, and the economic value to have one less golf course, yes, it seems like they've covered it.
So this is the only issue that the majority of the Board of Commissioners would allow submission of new evidence on, which is a substantial concern about this overall remand process. But because new evidence has been submitted on this topic, I'm satisfied that our information needs have been met.
So, and then I would say yes too.
Okay. So the third topic is about treaty compliance. The tribe and some commenters assert that the 2022 FWMP's groundwater plan infringes on the 1855 treaty rights, stressing ongoing fish habitat concerns, doubting whether proposed mitigation can truly prevent measurable harm, and criticizing adequacy of tribal consultations. The applicant claims the FWMP exceeds standard treaty compliance by engaging with tribal representatives, incorporating feedback, and implementing mitigation strategies that maintain or enhance fish habitats, with monitoring and dispute processes ensuring ongoing enforceability. So the board's decision point for this are, do the findings and the process adequately address the tribe's treaty rights?
As I say, I struggle with this because I want the, the relationship and the acknowledgement, the treaty rights to be upheld. This is a land use process in the state of Oregon and Deschutes County with our, rules and codes as they are. And I mean, it's shown that this is benefiting the, the rivers and the fish habitat by the conclusion of the first item we made here today. So I do support that they adequately address, knowing that this is a big topic that got dropped in here at the, later stages of this process that I've seen.
So as I just noted, there were a number of issues, there were 3 issues that were remanded to us, and the board, the majority of the board sought to severely restrict submission of new evidence on all but one of those issues. And I have real concerns about the adequacy of the opportunity to submit new evidence on this question of treaty rights, something that we did not really consider in a meaningful way in our first proceedings, and then which basically majority of the board said we had heard enough about for this remand process. Despite that, the Warm Springs tribes did share some important information with us. One of the most compelling things that I heard was that this fish and wildlife management plan did not adequately consider, integrate, coordinate with all of the other efforts that are going on in the basin. There was a specific reference made to a fish passage plan, and a really comprehensive effort to reintroduce and recover anadromous fish to the basin, and that there was little consideration of that in the fish and wildlife mitigation plan that was submitted. Specific mention of species that weren't considered, like lamprey. So I consider that, if that prior plan was trying to address tribal treaty rights, and this fish and wildlife management plan did not fully consider all of the components of that prior plan, then I think that, is a clear indication that treaty rights have not been considered fully and adequately in this process. So that's a no for me.
I'll go to Jacob. I'll go to yes. And apparently to cite LUBA page 34 if you need more information.
And I say yes also.
One other thing I would say about this is that this intersection of state land use law and federal treaty tribes, federal tribal and treaty law is something that we have not delved into before at Deschutes County. I don't know if there are any counties in the state of Oregon that have dealt with these issues, but
I think to the extent that we disregard the treaty rights of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs tribe or other tribes, federally recognized tribes, we are putting ourselves in substantial legal peril in the future. And just want everyone to note that now, so that if we basically bring upon ourselves a whole bunch of legal trouble in the future. It's been noted.
I think Marion County perhaps had a case that was cited, and then I believe I saw something like Skykomish in Washington State that was actually cited in the record too.
So the next two items are procedural to the record. And as I say, I've always struggled with this a little bit because we're going to answer a question if we did the job correctly. So it's just, we'll work through this, but it's kind of the logistics of how the procedural process even has happened here.
Sure, yeah. And there's two procedural topics. So the first was about remand participation, because some members of the public and community groups claim that Deschutes County overly restricted participation in this process, and reference to some case law to allow for broader and more flexible inclusion in remand proceedings. Staff's comment is that the county's application of participation limits is rooted in statutory and code requirements. Our local code, that's DCC 2234-030A, and that multiple CDD staff conducted case-by-case eligibility reviews, confirmed participation standings, and included all comments for transparency in the record, yet clarified that only evidence from prior parties with standing can legally inform the board's final decision on remand. So the board's decision here is, did the county properly apply and communicate participation requirements, maintaining both transparency and procedural integrity?
So as I say, once again, so this is going to be part of, just by talking about it here, this is part of the process, the record, the decision that we're doing. And I do support the fact that we did talk about this early. We explained it to participants. We have let other comments and input come in, but for the decision of the record, I support that we properly applied participation requirements. As I say, for each of us to
Right.
acknowledge.
I know it doesn't make the public happy, but we are following Deschutes Code.
I'll say that what we should have done, to be fair to the public and to allow the community to engage in this process, is we should have considered doing this remand de novo, making this process very open to people to provide all kinds of new input. We also, in my opinion, should have allowed submission of new evidence on issues 1 and 3, besides issue 2. So were we procedurally correct with the remand, with the flavor of remand that we chose? Yes. Did we choose the appropriate flavor of remand to give the community adequate opportunity to engage in the process and provide us important information that we needed to consider this? I would say no.
So then last item, item B, new evidence and rebuttal.
Yeah, so objecting parties argued that the applicant's rebuttal added new facts, undermining their response capacity and violating procedural norms against introducing new evidence. They request these materials be excluded or disregarded. The applicant asserts their rebuttal adheres to state definitions of argument and evidence, arguing that introducing clarifications linked to prior testimony is permissible under LUBA and statutory precedent, asking the board to exercise its discretion in evaluating these materials. To Staff highlights the 120-day remand deadline limits capacity for further rebuttal and asks the board to assess if rebuttal materials are genuinely new, non-responsive evidence, and if so, whether parties were substantially prejudiced. LUBA president affords the board discretion and expects substantial fairness and record clarity. So the decision point here is, should the board accept the rebuttal evidence into the record or disregard and exclude it from consideration on remand?
I think it should be disregarded and excluded.
So I'm seeing information in the record that is in response. It's in context of a process that has been appealed many times. So there's ongoing activity. There's kind of new information that's to say, I don't have it in front of me here, but just kind of the plans as they're evolving. So I don't see that as new evidence of a new concept. It's more just documenting what's going on as this project has been through this multiple step process. So I didn't see anything in there that should be excluded. And I do acknowledge that, as I say, it gets half a step back. The fact that, some emails we're still getting say, please do the right thing and stop this project, are kind of tangential to the facts of the case also.
I'll agree with that. There were actually 80 appeals. I think it's didn't it start originally of being approved like in 20 years ago, 2006 maybe?
Yeah.
19 years ago. Yeah, 80 appeals.
So is there any, I guess now is for us to discuss, is there any risk in accepting what's in the record right now? I think of the product I'm thinking of is the website. It talks about the open record period, the rebuttal, final response. I don't know that there's anything in there that, risks the record. It's just information that's there. Yeah. Is there a way to respond to that? I don't know. And this is just getting out of procedures. It's just procedurally correct.
Good morning, board. Stephanie Marshall, Senior Assistant Legal Counsel. Right, so the procedural objections, you've read both sides' arguments, and it's ultimately your decision to say, this information is, it's not new information, it's not new evidence, so therefore we're going to consider it. Procedural challenges, regardless of how you decide, I believe that this will go further and there will be procedural challenges. So you're not going to avoid a procedural challenge. The question is whose argument or which side's argument are you more persuaded by, knowing that there will be a procedural challenge in either event.
So as I say, seeing where this is going, if there's a way to optimize the record in support of a future event, but that's a chess game for legal minds that I don't even have the capacity to do. So
Absolutely. Right. Right. So, yeah, sure. I understand your point.
But there's a position of the board here that we're going down.
Right. Right. So ultimately, whatever decision you make as to inclusion or exclusion, the record will reflect that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the challenges will be, from either side, whichever way you decide.
Well, so then, as I say, I have access to the record and reviewed, but I haven't gone through an exercise of what would I, get down to real precise reason I might want to remove something for some step. Commissioner Dara, you're following me. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, nothing comes to mind. It just keeps.
Yeah, because we're kind of.
It's like just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, this is just the body of information. Any thoughts?
No.
Yeah, so let's just stop going down that path right now. So it sounds like we have, clarity on that item also, that we'll accept the rebuttal evidence into the record.
Okay.
2-1.
2-1. Okay, so, we're saying our piece here and acknowledging this is a modification process that has come back to us, and this is the deliberations to conclude. So what's the next steps?
So I'll come back with a draft decision July 23rd.
Okay. Anything else for this item then? Seeing none, we're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
So at this time, other items, there's no executive session following or anything? Okay, so just other items, and we'll finish up today. Fire activity still at the north edge of the county. I think you mentioned, I heard you saying
Yeah.
it looked like it was getting smaller, but then it got bigger.
Yeah, they downsized it, then they went up to 3,100 acres.
Yeah.
Yes. So it says zero containment, unfortunately. Yes, it is a season. That's why worrying about all those people that are out on public property that shouldn't be starting fires. Everyone's got to be really careful because we had all that rain and snow, and the grasses are getting really dry. And it's going to rain this weekend, so that's actually the really good news.
Last night was Project Wildfire annual event. We got together at Sun River, shared some food together. Commissioner Chang and I were both in the audience in the participation of it. A couple awards sent out. I don't have the information in front of me right now, but a couple of awards for community members that are really engaged and celebrating their engagement in advocacy for fuel reduction, defensible space, and being wildfire prepared. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say one of the most important interactions, pieces of information I received yesterday was hearing about the great work that's happening in so many neighborhoods around the county. At the dinner table I was sitting at, there was people from out Skyliner Road, there was people from Wild Rivers, there was people from Juniper Ridge area, north of Bend. And many of them expressed concern about inadequate levels of participation in defensible space preparedness work by their neighbors. In many cases, these were the people who were trying to rally their neighbors. Aubrey Butte also, who were trying to rally their neighbors to do the work. And they, many of these folks expressed a desire to me to have some kind of a requirement for people to do the work. The folks from Aubrey Butte were explaining to the others, well, now the city is really cracking down on people. And, the people from the rural portions of the county just said, well, gee, we wish we had that. At which point I had to remind them that the wildfire hazard map that is probably going to be terminated before the end of this legislative session was created for that specific purpose, to identify areas of high hazard where people should be required to do defensible space and build with wildfire resilient building materials when they do new construction. And they, a lot of the people at the table said, "Oh, well, I'm really sad that that's going away." So I do think that is leaves an opportunity for the county to consider, to go all the way back to, 2019 and 2020 and the Wildfire Advisory Council that the county had operating at that time, and consider instituting defensible space requirements at the county level for, the areas that require it, which is probably going to be a lot of Deschutes County.
Actually, One of my friends' neighborhoods just got dumped mulch yesterday morning at 6:30. Nobody in Bend should be using any mulch. Mulch, if it catches on fire, blows a couple miles. And driving up, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions, driving up Newport to go to the west side of Bend, all I see are dried out wood fences. I see a lot of trees on buildings. I feel like our community is not taking it seriously. We do have 21,000 properties that had the high risk, and of course now they've got the insurance issues. Your insurance is going up 30%, it's doubling, or you're not getting insured. A lot of people in that position are clearly stepping up, because unless you're prepared, you really do need to have insurance on your property, and particularly if you have a mortgage. But yeah, to have mulch delivered to a community in Bend in our situation, I find fascinating that they thought that was a good idea.
And, there's the people who are concerned. There's the people who take it upon themselves to educate themselves, to do the work at their properties. And then there's a whole lot of other folks who we probably aren't going to get to without some kind of regulations and requirements. If you're concerned about people doing fire foolish things on their properties, there's no better way to get to another, few tens of thousands of properties in Deschutes County than by instituting requirements that are going to reshape people's behaviors.
Actually, in LA County, to use it as a
I was just
quote.
here to celebrate Project
Yeah.
Wildfire's event last night.
No, I honestly, I'm talking to people about what I see when I drive around, and it makes me so nervous. Fire code number 100, you need to use it. You need to get it on those dried out pieces of wood. But in LA County, the fire department actually goes door to door. If you live in a fire region, and we see how well that worked this last January when the Palisades in East Malibu burned down, but they go door to door. And if you don't follow through with what they say you need to do, they will do it for you, and they will charge you 4 times more. So I know we've got some wonderful foresters or wonderful firemen in Bend County here in Bend Fire that came from Paradise, and that woman is on the Fire Free Committee. She's doing a great job, but more people. She needs a public service announcement every night, because people are missing the boat.
Okay, well, at the table I was at, they were all celebrating the fact that every time a dumpster got put in the community, Deschutes River Woods and other folks, it got filled up and taken away and emptied and refilled again. So there's some good work being done also.
No, we did amazing. Tim was, said, Patty, you will be really happy. And people honestly did really, really step up to clean up. But the problem is way bigger. Yeah. It is way bigger.
What I'm seeing.
And when the wind blows, just like the other night, when the wind was blowing 25 miles an hour, and that was a grass fire, you honestly, they still don't have it contained. It's zero containment. Grass fires, they move really quickly. And of course, the wind's going to pick up again today.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree that we should be appreciating and celebrating the people who do the work, and we should be honoring them as well by actually making them safer, by encouraging or compelling their neighbors to do the work too.
Nick, other items?
Thank you, Commissioners. The only other items I have is that the board will not be meeting between June 30th, Monday, June 30th, and July 15th. So we'll have a couple of meetings next week. I haven't seen the agendas yet. They may be large, just given the upcoming break in meetings. Brenda's confirming, yes, they will. The board will likely meet, although I'm going to ask department heads to please keep the agenda light on Wednesday, July 16th. Commissioner Chang will be remote for that meeting, just so we keep that fairly light. So the next 2 large meetings, which I expect they will be significant agendas, will be Monday and Wednesday, July 21st and 23rd, just so that everybody can plan accordingly.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
So there will not be a board meeting on Wednesday, the 9th.
Correct. I don't think we're gonna, there will just be two commissioners and if two commissioners, I also wasn't sure. Yeah, that's Wednesday, July 9th, right? Just given the schedule, we thought, let's just postpone decisions until the 16th, 21st, or 23rd of July.
Okay, that would be a better day for me than the 16th, but I'm tracking.
And hopefully you had mentioned that does the 16th work just briefly that I understood, just if necessary?
I'll be busy with my family and on the East Coast, and I can carve out time to attend as needed.
Okay.
But it's just kind of, yeah. I emphasize that I'd be available the week of the 7th, and that's not the week that we're going to try to fill in with a meeting. And the week that we're going to try to fill in with a meeting is the week that is, much more difficult for me. But, I get it. I see how it works.
Well, I mean, it's just the will of the board. I won't be available, so there's two commissioners that could meet on that day. That's all we're talking about here.
So we're talking
Or we could-
June 30th to July 16th. Our last meeting is on the 30th of June?
The board would not meet on the 30th.
No meeting. Okay.
But this is for the board. This is just in my coordination with your schedules during this window that I understand that we may have two commissioners. We might not have any commissioners. Not sure what AOC activities may or may not be. And if the board prefers not to meet on the 16th, that's fine as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I hadn't been, I've been out of the office for the last few days and just trying to coordinate quickly, just so we can have
And it
departments.
boils down to the fact that two commissioners may be available on one date, or two or three, and if you're remote,
We may
be
have
on a different day.
situation that
So
comes
it's,
up that
yeah.
we will need to meet and there will be two of us available.
Okay.
Prior to July 16th. So we should, I'm here.
Okay, that's great to know because I didn't want to put your personal schedule out there for the public at this time. I wasn't sure which commissioners may be here or not. That's super helpful that two of you are available, just given that the wildfire season, given
Right.
the actions that
something
we may
happens,
need to convene to discuss. For our knowledge that two of you are in town at various times is very, very helpful. Otherwise, we can certainly aim to have the next significant meeting after June 25th for Monday, July 21st.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
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 Anything else for this meeting then?
No.
Seeing none, meeting adjourned.